What up, Cooks? It's your boy, the Hater, and I figured I'd do a good old Raw review, you know what I'm saying? Now, as expected, this Raw was pretty mid. Now, I will admit that quite a few things happened, but the majority of them were boring or inconsequential. First things first, Cody Rhodes nowhere to be seen again. So this idea that Cody is going to be this persistent champion is obviously horseshit. Thus far, after WrestleMania, Cody Rhodes has come out and he's cut 2 promos. That's all he's done. He hasn't entertained anybody. He hasn't done anything that has to do with wrestling. And he's basically cut the same 2 promos that he's been cutting for years by changing a few words. Instead of saying, I will win, he said, I did win. Fantastic. Now let's start the show. The first thing that I want to talk about, Gunther comes out and declares for the King of Jobbers tournament, right? I don't know who's going to be on this, but basically everyone is a jobber. Thus far, from what I understand, Gunther, Xavier Woods, who is a jobber, and Drew McIntyre, who becomes a jobber by being part of this, and I'm sure Sheamus is going to be in there. All these guys are jobbers. Here's why they're jobbers. And ironically, the only one here that I think has any business being there is Gunther, right? The one thing that we see about the King of the Ring is that very seldom do people want to win the King of the Ring twice, right? They win it once, and usually they use this to catapult to the main event, right? Sometimes this takes more than a year, like with Kurt Angle. So he went and he competed for the King of the Ring again, the next year's King of the Ring, but he also had a high-profile match with Shane, and he certainly wasn't a jobber. Everybody else in this match is people like Xavier Woods, who has already won the King of the Ring and did absolutely nothing with it. It's a complete waste that they gave him the King of the Ring. Then we have people like Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, who are both people that have been in the main event. So they should have no business being in the King of the Ring. Imagine if in King of the Ring 2000 or 2001, The Undertaker took it seriously and tried to become King of the Ring. Imagine if The Rock or Stone Cold entered the King of the Ring. No, it was reserved for the likes of Al Snow, Rikishi, Val Venus, and typically one up-and-coming, soon-to-be main eventer like Kurt Angle or Brock Lesnar, right? Usually the King of the Ring is supposed to be a jobber tournament or at minimum a mid-carder tournament. So with this in mind, Gunther fits right in because all he's done is accomplish the Intercontinental Championship title reign that he had, right? Beyond that, he's done nothing. He is definitely a mid-carder at best, in my opinion, a jobber. But this leads to a match because the New Day comes out and they basically bury Gunther and Imperium for absolutely no reason. Basically, they're like, you lost your gold, like nobody cares about you, which, you know, it's facts. Like, let's be real, nobody really does care about Gunther, right? Gunther says that he's above this and he sicks Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser to wrestle these guys. How great would it be if instead Gunther said, me and Giovanni Vinci are going to wrestle, right? But because Gunther is essentially a part-time mid-carder now, he has no reason to do this. Gunther wrestles like 15 times a year, and people think he's a legend. But whatever, right? Another thing that should be noted here was Gunther saying that he's above this is absurd. Because Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, sure, is a jobber, but Kofi Kingston is like one of the most decorated wrestlers of all time. He's like an 8-time mid-card champion at least, right? He's like a multiple-time tag team champion, and he's even a WrestleMania world champion. So for Gunther to say he's above Kofi Kingston is absurd. He's not above Kofi Kingston. Like, if both retired today, Kofi Kingston is going to be in the Hall of Fame and Gunther wouldn't. So how is he above him? Anyways, it is what it is. The match starts. The match eventually ends after New Day hit the up, down, down on Giovanni Vinci and pin his jobber ass. Pin this little mini Cesaro, right? After the match, Gunther is somehow upset, even though he just has been associating with these 2 jobbers for like years now. Like, all they do is lose. Like Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci, all they do is go out there and lose. They're like jobbers to the stars, or you know, but in the context of a tag team. So it's like they're jobbers to jobbers. You know what I mean? Ludwig Kaiser's had enough. He attacks Giovanni Vinci, but who cares? In the end, he goes backstage and Gunther's like smiling in approval. Like, who gives a shit? What's going to happen? Giovanni Vinci's going to come back? Giovanni Vinci's never going to make it. Like, he's basically another Cesaro, but smaller. He has like 0 charisma as far as I can tell. Then, another segment worth noting was Damian Priest comes out and he has a segment with Jey Uso. For the first time ever, Jey Uso was actually kind of fun, right? He didn't stumble his words. He cut a pretty decent promo, and I thought it was all pretty good, all things considered, right? He's definitely gotten his catchphrase over, so I can't fault Jey Uso. He is what he is. He is a twin, so he's obviously replaceable, but he has done the best with what he's been given. And that's all the hater asks from everybody, right? Do the best with what you've been given. And Jey Uso has done the best with what he's been given, right? Damian Priest comes out and starts talking to him about nonsense, right? Damian Priest there's a word that we used back in the day called Bama. A Bama is someone who's whack as hell and dresses all weird. So this Bama, Damian Priest, has zero direction. Like, what the hell is he, right? First he's El Campeón, then he's like kind of effeminate, then he's part of Judgment Day. It's like, what is this guy? What is his character? Nobody knows. Like, there's something good about Damian Priest. Like, I think his finisher is awesome. The South of Heaven, right? It's an old school choke slam, but it's like a sit-out choke slam, so it just looks badass. Like, he's got something going for him. The problem is that he's otherwise boring, right? Then JD McDonough, who somehow still has a job, and who in the past I liked, but he's just a waste now. He comes out and he tries to attack Jey Uso. Jey Uso kind of gets out of the way because he's not very athletic. And JD McDonough doesn't do anything at all. He doesn't attack Jey, and he doesn't even attack by accident, which I think was the intended consequence. He doesn't even accidentally attack fucking Damian Priest, right? Then Jey Uso super kicks Damian Priest, and JD McDonough's like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And he's holding his mouth as if something unexpected and unprecedented has happened. This happens all the time with these jobbers. They all get super kicked every once in a while, but for some reason now, JD McDonough has to hold, what's his face? Damian Priest in high deference, right? And it's not even his fault. He failed, and then Jey Uso kicked Damian Priest, who just stood there like an idiot, right? And speaking of standing there like an idiot, JD McDonough, while this is unfolding, after Jey Uso kicks him, Jey Uso does a taunt over his body, and JD McDonough's just standing there. Didn't you come out to attack Jey Uso? And Jey Uso, didn't you just almost get attacked by JD McDonough? Why don't you super kick him too? But whatever, I don't expect any of that to make sense. Then we have a match. It's Miz and R-Truth, who are obviously awesome, versus D.I.J., the Do-It Jobbers. These two guys come out, nobody gives a fuck. It's over, motherfuckers. It's never gonna happen. Ciampa and Gargano are never going to be this great team. They're no longer going to be this underdog story. If they ever win the tag team titles, which is going to be a completely meaningless win, it's going to be presented as a big deal, but these guys are both NXT legends, so it's it really shows how low NXT is on the totem pole. Nevertheless, there's a part that was noteworthy. The Miz pulls Johnny Gargano from under the apron, right? He just pulls him from the leg and just throws him across the floor like a child. Johnny Gargano is so small that the Miz just throws him like a child, right? And this is after DIY has hit the meeting in the middle, which is their double team finisher. And while Gargano is pinning R-Truth close to the ropes, Tommaso Ciampa, instead of trying to prevent the Miz from getting, in the ring or whatever, otherwise breaking up the pin cover, Tommaso Ciampa is pandering to the crowd that doesn't care at all. The crowd doesn't give a fuck that Tommaso Ciampa is looking at them and trying to talk to them. Focus on the match, jobber. So, after that, Miz and Gargano have a meaningless exchange. Miz hooks on the skull-crushing finale. Gargano rolls out. Blah, blah, blah. A bunch more rolly shit happens. Miz gets the skull-crushing finale. R-Truth joins just in time to hit the Little Jimmy finale, which has now been renamed to something far less interesting. I think it's called the Truth-Crushing finale. It's really stupid. But anyways, then we've got Sheamus and Drew. Once again, these two assholes are in a promo. The promo is boring. I will say that Drew McIntyre is getting better at promos, and I do appreciate his hard work. However, Sheamus, who's already been kind of decent at promos, right? He comes out, and the segment makes absolutely no sense. Basically, now we're supposed to believe that these guys are friends again, right? This is it's like a Seth Rogen movie. First they're friends, then they're not friends, then they're friends again, right? Now they're friends again, cucks. But guess what? They can't be friends for too long because, Sheamus decides to berate Drew McIntyre for absolutely no reason. He's like, you lost. You got sidetracked, and a one-armed CM Punk kicked your arse. Why would you say that to your friend? If your friend got beaten up by a one-armed jobber, you wouldn't be like you got your ass kicked by a one-armed jobber, right? Meanwhile, Drew McIntyre, who is the intended heel, comes off as the real good guy because he tells Sheamus, first of all, he body shames Sheamus for no reason whatsoever because Sheamus looks exactly the same. Yeah, he's put on a few pounds, but Sheamus basically says, yeah, I'm fat, but I can lose weight, but you can't lose stupid, which is another way to put down your best friend, your alleged best friend, right? Then this spirals out of control into more nothingness, and Drew McIntyre says, I'm going to be here at ringside, right? And I got your back, right? Now, something nefarious can be read into this, but if you don't read the nefarious thing into it, the idea stands on its own. It's basically like Drew McIntyre is like just got screwed out of his title at WrestleMania, and Sheamus comes in, berates him, and Drew McIntyre says, I'm still your friend, and I stood up for you when the boys in the back were calling you fat, which is weird because they're all fat anyways. Like Sheamus would butcher all of them, you know what I mean? But it is what it is, right? And then Sheamus is like, I don't care what they say about me, right? It's like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? So why are you talking shit then? Why should Drew McIntyre care about what you say if you don't care about what other people say, right? Oh, because they're friends. Fuck that, right? That was stupid. Then afterwards, Sheamus beats Nakamura, who is now a permanent low-level jobber. Now Nakamura is on the same level as Taka Michinoku, and I don't care what you tell me. He is a jobber. He's not a mid-carder anymore. He is a jobber. Like Nakamura never wins anything. You may as well go back to Japan and ride it out for the next few years where maybe they'll make you champion again. But it is what it is. I don't give a shit about Nakamura. Next up, we have Ricochet and Andrade versus JD McDonough and Santos Escobar in a match of 4 meaningless jobbers. Now, beyond the fact that this was a match of 4 meaningless jobbers, what happens is the match is botchy as hell. It's just a botch after botch after botch. And I don't want to see this shit. Andrade hits his new move, which used to be called the Message. Now it's called the Shadow. Fantastic. Afterwards, what's his face? Damian Priest, that Bama, comes out and starts chokeslamming people, beating their ass. Then Dominic Mysterio, who is injured now, he's really going for that Eddie Guerrero thing because he looks like Eddie Guerrero now. He's got the haircut and the pedo stash, and he's got the arm in a sling. He comes out and basically, for some reason, Damian Priest says to him in Espanol, right? What the fuck? Judgment Day is not the LWO. Why are they speaking in Spanish, right? The group has, or is supposed to have, a gimmick. They're supposed to be these, like, emo kids, basically, right? So, you know, there's no reason for you to, like, kind of connect to the Dominic Mysterio and Damian Priest being Latinos thing. That should be irrelevant because that's outside of the group's identity, right? Dominic is pissed because he just beat up his friends. Santos and also Andrade, who he was, you know, Dominic is like in this weird situation where like he's with Santos, but like him and Andrade were talking as well. So it's like, you know, he beat up his friends more or less, right? Or he at least showed him up. And then JD McDonough, who is now a permanent lackey, he's like, what did he say, Dom? What did he say? And then basically what he said was, I don't need none of y'all's. Damian Priest said this. Okay, so what? Who gives a fuck if Judgment Day is going out of style, right? Like Jey Uso said earlier tonight, Damian Priest is the leader only because Rhea Ripley is gone, right? Basically, Jey Uso's right. He's basically saying nobody gives a fuck about anyone in this group except for people that care about Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio. This was actually a great point by Jey Uso, right? Because he pretty much buried the other 3 guys that are just hanging off the coattails of Rhea Ripley and Dominic, who are the real stars. Nobody gives a shit about Finn Balor. Nobody has cared about Finn Balor for like 10 years, right? And basically, Jey Uso says, now you're Dom's bitch, right? And Jey Uso is right, because Dom is the clear draw of this jobber faction. Then after this, we have like a 35-minute battle royal, right? Where botchy Becky Lynch wins a botch fest of a battle royal. The last 2 people in this match are her and Liv Morgan, another notorious botcher, right? And they have a little apron back and forth until Becky hits the worst Uranagi, which they call the manhandle slam, even though she didn't go all the way down. She hits the move on the apron, and Liv Morgan rolls out, and that's the end of that, right? Becky Lynch is not the new champion. She celebrates. Who gives a rat's ass? Notable from this Raw is the fact that Cody Rhodes didn't show up. Gunther once again didn't wrestle, and now everyone seems to be focused on the King of the Ring tournament. Sami Zayn, who also is getting a boost now, wasn't there. What the hell is wrong with having people show up for more than 1 fucking week in a row and wrestling, right? Why is Sami Zayn not there? Why is Sami Zayn not there to try to get revenge on Chad Gable? why is Chad Gable not there to cut a promo and explain why he doesn't give a fuck about Sami Zayn, right? And at least keep the story alive if it's going to be a story, right? Why is there no follow-through? Now it's like all of a sudden the draft is around the corner, right? Ilya Dragunov is going to drop the title today in a few hours, I'm sure, right, to Trick Williams, who will probably go down. I mean, I would say he'd go down as the worst NXT champion, but then you have to think, like, NXT has also had, like, Johnny Gargano and Samoa Joe as champions, and, like, you know, Adrian Neville and, like, Finn Balor, who have done nothing for the brand. So maybe Trick Williams has a shot. But the truth is, everything's going downhill, and Raw was mid. Some of the stuff was interesting. The Miz and R-Truth. I'm happy that The Miz and R-Truth, one of whom is in their 50s and the other one who's in his mid-40s, are there wrestling week after week, while jobbers like Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn are too good for this, right? Miz, none of these guys will ever surpass The Miz in terms of charisma or presence, right? Nor R-Truth. But they refuse to wrestle. So now we have to watch like a 20-minute battle royal with Doudrop being put through a table or whatever the fuck happened. The point being, Cucks, nobody cares about this, and everyone involved just feels mid-level. Nobody there tonight, right? I will accept the possibility that you can consider someone like Cody Rhodes a main eventer because he won the world title at WrestleMania. So I personally think he's a mid-card jobber, but I could see why you think of him as a main eventer. But him, CM Punk, another quasi-main eventer, none of these guys are there to even say a word, right? The show is legit a complete, like, it's completely full of mid-card and below. There's not one person there that is a legit main eventer. Seth Rollins, not there. Like, Drew McIntyre didn't wrestle. Who the fuck is wrestling? Johnny Gargano? I don't want to see Johnny Gargano. And that's why I believe that the ratings of Raw are going to continue to go down. And with that being said, Cuck, go fuck yourselves.